in the long term, I think quite easily well over $10 million per Bitcoin. And I know it sounds funny. But if you were in Bitcoin, if you asked me that same question in Bitcoin when it was only at $1, that Bitcoin would be at $60. That was equally funny. But brother, we are being harmed every single day. Look at Lebanon. They lost over 50% of their value of their currency within a day. In one single day, their currency collapsed. It never had collapsed because something happened. It's because the system was fragile. It was already breaking in the first place. COVID just took it over the edge to Islam again. Remember when Allah mentioned that when you conquer Mecca, you see people enter Islam in large numbers.
Yeah.
That basically refers to that S curve, where once you reach the initial adoption, you start seeing a spike in adoption.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to another episode of the Optimized Muslim podcast. In this podcast, I like to focus on self-development for the Muslim, health, psychology, productivity, happiness. And today we're going to be talking more about personal finance and cryptocurrency. I like to delve deeper into the mindsets of the guests and still come out with practical tools, tips that we can implement in our own lives and become better Muslims, inshallah. Having said that, I'd like to introduce the guest for today. We've got Ustadh Mu'Aawiyah Tucker with us. And alhamdulillah, I'm very happy to be joined by Ustadh Mu'Aawiyah because he's a graduate from the University of Madinah in 2008 from the Faculty of Shari'ah. And now he's involved as an expert and someone who's very knowledgeable on cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, which obviously has become kind of popular of late due to the rise in price and whatnot. So we're going to be having a wide-ranging discussion on these topics. And yeah, so with that being said, Assalamu alaikum, Ustad, and thank you for joining us.
Wa alaikum assalam, and thank you. It's nice to be here and be part of your Optimized Muslim. Inshallah, we can do exactly that, optimize the Muslimin.
Jazakallah. First of all, I just want to say, alhamdulillah, it's so refreshing. You know, when I first came across your Instagram, you know, when I see people who are kind of learned Muslims, but they're going into a different kind of area and excelling at the forefront of something that's only going to probably get more and more widespread and more people are going to be adopting it. And that's why I wanted to have you on. I saw you on Freshly Grounded, and I kind of watched that. And when I was watching that as well, I was like, damn, mashallah, this brother knows about this stuff. And so first of all, I want to say, I forgot to mention, you now have a website called cryptohash.com, cryptohashreview.com. And I was just going through it before the interview, and mashallah, it's very informative. And I'll direct people to that as well, because it's going to basically answer a lot of the questions that we're going to be talking about here. And it's a very good format, similar to how I had structured the kind of interview. So, but before we get into that, I just wanted to get like a brief overview about how you kind of got into this space. So say from the age of 16 onwards, if you can just kind of give us a summary of your kind of life.
Cool. So, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Allahumma علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. So, 16. This is probably 1995. I wasn't even Muslim. So that's that part done. And then probably about I think 1997. I think it was. I accepted Islam. I think it was 97 or 98. And that was in college. So I was doing maths, further maths, physics, and computing A-level. And then midway, right, literally mid of the year, I accepted Islam, life-changing event, going from wanting to be a scientist and an astronaut to now wanting to be a da'i. And 20 years later, my ambitions have returned to one day be an astronaut, inshallah. Elon Musk will take us there. But yeah, that was me at a very young age. I was very much into the sciences, into computers specifically. Even when I was very young, actually, I even built my own computer. My mom had a I kind of learned computing myself, really. I mean, even learning DOS, which is basically like command line, before Windows came about. So I actually learned DOS on my own when I was probably about 9 or 8 or 10. I
mashallah.
had a computer. I had a compact computer that my mum had. So I literally opened it up. What was this? What is that? If I take this out, what happens? That kind of stuff. So I kind of figured out how to build a computer. And when I was still in secondary school, that's what I did. I literally bought the pieces and I built myself a computer. So that was, as you can see, I already had that kind of mindset from a long time ago. Then came Islam, then came the university. Got accepted, I think, in 2001, and I was already married at the time. So left there, sought Islam, sought the Deen, learned Arabic for 3 years, and then Shari'ah for 4 years. During that time, again, I bought the pieces to build a computer when I was over there. So I already had that mindset computing. Whilst I was still studying, I tried to, obviously when you're studying Islam, your aim is to propagate and give da'wah. So I figured, let me make a website to da'wah. So I bought a web domain, and I wanted to have an interactive website. Remember, this is like the noughties now. It's like 2006. So I wanted to have a nice interactive website with animations and all the rest of it. So I looked in the website. I looked online for, okay, how can I get animations on the website? Things were very new at the time. We had HTML5 then. So I knew you can do animations on Adobe Flash, which Apple killed. Apple killed Adobe Flash, but we had Flash. So I actually learned ActionScript, which is basically the programming language for Adobe Flash. Made my own website using entirely Flash, animations, moving here, swish, swish, that kind of stuff. That was what I did. And as you can see, that was my mindset. And when I came and I graduated from Islamic University of Madinah, my mindset was, okay, now I'm back in the UK. I want to give the Ummah the tools necessary for them to progress as Muslims, primarily learning Arabic. And then from the Arabic, that will hopefully lead on to, that was my vision anyway at the time, lead on to Islamic studies, learning fiqh and usul and the rest of it. And again, I expanded my knowledge learning PHP, which is basically scripting language for servers. I began to learn HTML, CSS, MySQL, which is basically do databasing. So these are the things I was doing to try and develop my website, develop an online presence, and that kind of stuff. And in the process of doing that, in 2000, and this obviously time is planned. I've got a center, even a center you see here. This is what we built in 2013. We got the property was empty. We built it. So in 2017, when I was in the process of updating one of our websites, I had some issues with PayPal getting it integrated. It was the website was very cumbersome, and it was click here, click here, and they go back here, and it was a headache. And I figured to myself, I wonder if there's a way I could get paid without PayPal. So I looked, and I knew there was something called Bitcoin. I mean, I heard of it, we hear of it, but I didn't really think positive or negative. I just thought, okay, how can I get paid in Bitcoin? That was it for me. How can I add just another level of payment on the website rather than just paper? And I found a plugin for my website. I plugged it in. Okay, I would test it. So I thought, let me get some Bitcoin transaction works. I bought some Bitcoin, tested the transaction. It worked. I thought, great. I can now get payments in Bitcoin. And that was the beginning of that rabbit hole of what the heck Bitcoin was, because that was literally at the beginning, which is basically what's happening now. Right now with this cycle, it was the beginning of the 2017 bull market or cycle. And Bitcoin basically does that. So all the Bitcoins that I had got just to test things out, and what I was noticing, it was almost doubling in the price. I thought, what the heck is this? What's going on here? And then I started to learn about this coin and that coin and Litecoin. And Ethereum, so it's like a kid in a candy store. And the price started to go ridiculous, as it does every 4 years. And that basically led me to want to learn, what is this thing and why is it going up, and how is this going to change the future? And that's basically why I began. And I kind of dedicated a lot of it about how does it work? How does it function? They say it's decentralized. Is it really decentralized? What are the attack vectors in the system? And the irony actually was, is, as anyone who's exposed to Bitcoin, the ironic thing about Bitcoin is that it kind of actually teaches you indirectly what is money in the first place. As in, I never thought at any point to actually question what is money or how money is made. As I'm sure anyone who's watching this is probably the same thing. And you know, all they think about is I'll go to university, get a job, I earn this amount, and then I can buy stuff. That's as far as as far as their mind goes is, I'm going to get a job, I'm going to earn such and such, and I'm going to buy X, Y, and Z. That's technically the extent of the thinking. No one actually goes down to first principles. Okay, what is this money? I mean, why is it even money? Who gives it value? And why is it given value? And ironically, why can some print it, does not print it? So yeah, that led me down to the rabbit hole to learn what money was, which exposed how deeply rooted and ingrained riba interest is in every facet of our society, which led me to hate it even more because I already wanted to get into Bitcoin to escape riba, just from the fact of not keeping money in a bank account. I didn't realize that the actual money itself was created from riba, and it just led me into a spiral until we have today. You know, I've developed a website to try and educate Muslims about what Bitcoin is, to try and remove the fallacies surrounding it, the inaccurate ideas about it, and the false narratives that are portrayed towards it. And hopefully, inshallah, if Muslims are able to adopt it and integrate it into their business, they can hopefully optimize their lives, brother. Hey, you see that one, eh?
Yeah.
They can optimize their lives.
Jazakallah. Yeah, that was great, Ustad. So just a couple of points I wanted to pick out from there before moving on. So obviously, when you were talking about being interested in computers and learning these scripts yourself, that suggests like a growth mindset from an early age, right? Not only that kind of interest, but also that willingness to learn new things, adopt new skills, get into new domains, which obviously that's what I was trying to get at, because then that patterns continued even after Madinah. 2017, you say you got involved in this. And then I was looking at your Instagram page for Crypto Hash Review, where you were very bullish on this from 2017, and it didn't die down like, you know, with a lot of people after the crash. You kind of maintained that. So you had a deep kind of understanding. Like let's say everyone kind of found out about it in 2017, but then I wouldn't say I understand it to the level of like being able to explain it succinctly, like you're able to, or get into what it is properly and things like that. So yeah, having the other thing I wanted to move on to is following on from like how your website. First of all, is your website, what platform do you use for your website?
So yeah, one of the things about my online journey in terms of website development, I don't know why, but to always take the long route of doing things. As in, I would prefer to take the long journey of learning something from scratch so that I have the ability to do what I want when I want. So that kind of led me to say, look, rather than just download some template and use some already existing thing, I thought, let me actually learn PHP, let me actually learn HTML, let me actually learn JavaScript and actually do it myself. So that's what I did for many years. And then I realized that at the end of the day, in terms of business, we need to optimize, brother.
Yeah, this is gonna turn into I don't know if this is gonna haunt me like in years to come.
Yeah, so it's issue of efficiency. So yeah, I could actually program some cool animation to, you know, have my text scroll down, but I could just download the plugin. So I kind of got a bit lazy, which because it's not a bad thing, especially those out there who are looking into business. It's not a bad thing to take a shortcut, as long as that shortcut brings the results you want, and the rest of your time generating income. So eventually I moved to WordPress reluctantly, because I admit for years I hated WordPress. I said, oh, WordPress is it's the easy man thing and blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, it gets the job done. It allows you to focus on your main task, which is to make money. So you need to optimize yourself as a Muslim. I've got you again. So our current website is based on WordPress, and there's a few other plugins integrated into that.
Yeah, because I was thinking of upgrading to there's this theme, DV theme, that's kind of on top of it, and like you're saying, it's just like click and drop kind of thing. And I was thinking of maybe getting someone to do it, but then I thought I've got time now, so I might as well just try to learn it.
There was one guy, you know, James Khan.
Yeah.
Or James Khan.
Yeah.
His real name is Naveed, but yeah, James Khan. In his autobiography, which he has actually on the Apple App Store, if you download, it's quite good. Khan with a C, Caan. He mentioned one thing which I've always tried to implement in myself in my life. He said he never ever paid someone to do work for him until at least he first tried it himself, so he can gauge the value that this person is offering, which I've tried to use as much as I can. So before even attempting to pay someone to do something, I always try to do it myself. Even like in 2019, throughout most of 2019, or I'll say about half of 2019, I had many ideas about developing some kind of decentralized program using blockchain. So I figured rather than pay someone or pay people to design my ideas, at least try and find out myself, you know, how hard is it? So I actually attended a few courses to learn Solidity, which is basically the programming language for Ethereum. Made a few coins myself and wrote a few white papers even about how to develop different tokens and projects based on that, systems. And one of the main objectives for me was, okay, look, how difficult is it to do something like this on your own? And now you can quantify that in terms of man hours. Then if I hire someone, I can see what a fair price is. So same thing with you. Anyone on listening to this, if you want to, if you have any ideas of doing something, first, always try yourself, see what's involved. If it's insanely difficult and takes loads of man hours, then now you know that requires a lot of work. If it's actually something very simple, that you can just do it yourself, bish bash bosh, then you know you might save yourself a few bob. But you have to have that balance between saving yourself money and saving yourself time. That's, you always have to equate your that balance between the time you exert and the time you spend. And especially in terms of quality. I mean, even when I built this place, the first couple of boards I put up, I wrecked them, which is good in terms of learning. But then obviously I lost some boards, so you get the same. But anyway.
Jazakallah. And it's also passion as well. Like sometimes you think that I could become an expert in Photoshop, but then I think it's just easy to pay someone £10 and they're already an expert in it, so they'll design something that looks all nice and stuff.
It's good you said that, because I've had that challenge myself for a while. For example, sometimes I've said to myself, you know, I could spend 4 hours explaining to someone how I want it to be done, and then hope they do it, or spend that 4 hours do it myself. And I've always been a challenge. I mean, how do you get a balance between getting what's in my head into their head so they can do it? And is it quicker just to do it myself? And I heard this very interesting saying the other day: if you want to get there faster, do it yourself. If you want to get further, do it together. And this is very important to have that balance. You could do things very quickly on your own, but how far can you take your vision? How far can you take your project? And there's one thing my friend, a very good friend from in college, he became an accountant in the end. And when he was building this building, the center, I was technically doing it on my own. And he said to me, do you know why builders will never be rich? Never be rich. I said, why? He said, because they only have two hands. Because there's so much one builder can do on his own. Only way he can take his business forward is to employ other hands. And that really stuck with me for many years as a means to say, like, basically, in the end of the day, to be successful in business and to optimize yourself as a Muslim, you're gonna need to organize human labor and move yourself forward. Delegation, that kind of stuff. And that's essentially what a trader does or a merchant does. One of the biggest successes that the Muslim Ummah brought to itself and to the people around them when it's not Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and the Sahaba and the companions expanded was trade. A merchant. What does a merchant do? A merchant takes resources, products that are scattered throughout the dunya, organize them nicely in the marketplace. They make the scattered available to the people. You don't think of it that way, but that's a massive service that a merchant is providing to the ummah. it's organizing the chaotic. And I don't know if I don't know what you do specifically in terms of university, but if you look at what does mankind, what does human beings do? What do we do essentially as a species? We decrease entropy. Have you heard of the word entropy before?
Yeah.
So we decrease that randomness in nature. You have resources randomly, some rock over here and some fossil field over here, and we do everything's all scattered. But we use the ilm, the knowledge that Allah has taught us with the pen, and we bring all those scattered things together, and we end up making an iPhone or a computer or whatever. So that's essentially what Muslims do. We need to always be entrepreneurial, always think, how can I solve problems of mankind by bringing together that which is scattered and making things more efficient, which is ironic that that's essentially what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin increases the efficiency of business and commerce and the marketplace. It optimizes the marketplace. I'm gonna kill it. I'm gonna kill it with optimization.
Yeah, mashallah, that was really good. It's like, I think just before we move on to Bitcoin, there's a bit of like cognitive dissonance. Like, you know how you just described the essence of business or the essence of trade, and I haven't heard it like that, but it's a beautiful way of putting it, about how getting something that's scattered and organizing it. Because sometimes when you break down a business, you know, a lot of people have this kind of limiting mindset where they think, oh, well, then I can just do it. But then it's like, you can do anything then, because if you just get the source materials, you know, like say if you're selling something and it's basically arbitrage, so you get it cheaper and then you sell it for more at a different location or that's basically how it works. Technically, you can say, oh, the consumer can just go and do that themselves. But it's the nature. I think I used to kind of sometimes think that as well. And like now with online courses, you know how like I find it's valuable sometimes to pay for it because it's all organized and it's gone through the lens of an expert who's filtered it. Other people will say, oh, it's all on Google, but they won't do anything. But they kind of have it in their mind that it's all on there, you can just do it yourself. But they're kind of neglecting that value of the organization. It's a big thing.
I think unfortunately, and this is something I've noticed a lot from people when they speak smack about Bitcoin, is that Muslims, and I say Muslims, I don't mean specifically Muslims, but I mean generally everyone, basically human beings.
Yeah,
we've actually lost as a species, for most people, the ability to value something properly. And I think the reason probably which connected to it is the fact that fundamentally, even our monetary system has lost value. I mean, think about it. Joe Biden has just signed off the printing of $1.9 trillion. I mean, just absorb that for a second. If you just absorb that for 1 second, $1.9 trillion will now pop into existence and be distributed evenly amongst the citizens of the United States of America, taking away essentially wealth from all those other countries across the world, specifically Muslim countries, who have their currency pegged the dollar off the world from all the Muslim countries. Saudi Arabia is included, Bangladesh is included, all these currencies that have no value independent from the dollar. They literally siphon off all that value and are giving it to some people in their own country. We actually have lost a way to measure value. I mean, every other year, the house prices are going up. Every other year, things are going up more expensive. We've lost really what it means to have value, because we don't actually have nothing real. I mean, we have nothing real to store that value that actually captures that value. Our pounds is just literally just disintegrating on the year in, year out basis. So basically what you just said there is, so people don't really value the work necessary or needed by the middleman. And that's one thing I learned a lot, and I advise anyone who's interested in economics, and economics is an amazing subject. We had Islamic economics in Madinah University. That was one of our modules in Faculty of Shari'ah. We covered a few good modules. One of them was Islamic. One of them was Islamic economics. Another one was Islamic politics, and a few other things. So we had Islamic economics, but that was more of a conceptual idea of what does it mean what does the marketplace mean to a Muslim? What does economics mean to a Muslim? And what are the other ideas about economics from other ideas, ideally, obviously, to do with capitalism and socialism and the rest of it. So that was an overview of that, and some general touching upon how does an Islamic country generate revenue and the rest of that kind of stuff. But when I came here to the UK, I tried to dig a bit deeper into the actual details of economics and markets. And there's an amazing book that I advise you guys to read, because it kind of embodies like 90 or 80% of Islamic economics as it is. I mean, it's written by a Muslim, it's actually written by kafir. But you find, ironically, that capitalism and Islamic economics technically are almost the same. I mean, that's almost the same, as in, obviously, capitalism is more wide in the sense of there is no halal and haram in the marketplace for them. So this is kind of open-winded, whereas Islam has similar, almost identical principles, but has barriers to one things which obviously alcohol and interest invested in. So it's very similar. But it's called Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell. Basic Economics by Thomas Sowell.
I've heard of Thomas Sowell, but in a different kind of field.
He speaks about different things, about race talks and that kind of stuff. But he's kind of the main student of Milton Friedman, which is another one of those, and it kind of follows what's called the Austrian school of economics. So when I say Islamic capitalism is similar to Islamic economics, I'm talking from the Austrian school, not the Keynesian school. Keynesians are more into the whole money printing and building the economy on debt. Whereas Austrian is not upon debt. Austrian economics is not building money upon debt, it's building money upon actual capital, which again is in line with Islam. Islam is not about functioning on debt. Actually, Islam frowns on the concept of debt and living off of debt. Actually, debt is almost like last resort. If you need it, when you need it, only at that moment, then do it. But other than that, no. So yeah, that book opened up a lot of avenues, explaining what economics is, and tying those things together with Islam is amazing to explain a lot of the details that is probably not explored.
Jazakallah khair. I don't know if you've seen, there's a Islamic Finance Guru website out there.
I've seen some of the videos. I wasn't too impressed, to be honest, with the Islamic with the crypto side of it, but that's something else. But I've seen them that they're doing something to spread the knowledge. Or encourage Muslims at least.
So I wanted to now move up onto Bitcoin. So say, because obviously you've done other interviews and stuff out there as well, potentially in more depth, but say if you were, in brief, someone says to you, you meet someone in the shop or something, and you know you've only got maybe 2 or 3 minutes with them, and they're like, what's a Bitcoin? What's a Bitcoin? What would you say?
Bitcoin is a fixed unit of a portion of 21 million coins. And with these 21 million coins, it is an economy or currency that is built on the same principles of gold. You can only get gold if you worked for it. And just much the same way, Bitcoin, you're going to get a Bitcoin if you work for it. So Bitcoin is a human attempt to bring mankind back to the fundamental principles of how currency has always been, taking us away from our current system of money that is based upon debt. So you as a Muslim, if you were serious about escaping riba and living life as riba-free as possible, then you have no choice really but to adopt gold, silver, and most likely Bitcoin. The main benefit Bitcoin has over gold and silver is that Bitcoin has all the fundamental principles of gold and silver, but also has the advantages of the fiat system in terms of easy portable, weightless, and programmable, and other things. I can't pay right now. I can't give you gold. Can't give you Bitcoin right now. So you just show me your address, and I just show on the freshly grounded. So you get the advantages of internet money whilst keeping the legacy and the benefits of gold and silver, which is something that's only achieved by actual hard work. And going above gold and silver in the sense that gold and silver has essentially indefinite inflation, and it can inflate forever.
Yeah.
Whereas Bitcoin does not. That's
Yeah.
probably a bit more than 4 minutes, but
Yeah.
that's basically
No.
my elevator pitch.
Yeah, Jazakallah khair. So, like on your website, it says, and you summarize it well, the main challenge people face is one, understanding the fundamentals, which you've just kind of gone over in the elevator pitch. Second, and I'd say this is the main thing that you'd find amongst kind of somewhat educated people, it's more of the primary use case. So up until a few months ago, now because of the hype, people are willing to kind of give it another thought, because when they see that it's gone up 10x, they're like, oh, I'm interested. But before that, I remember having a conversation with someone about 6 months ago when it hadn't risen to the extent that it has now. The main response, and this was before PayPal's kind of announcement that they were adopting it or allowing it on their platform or something. So the main thing was, what, I can't use it, as in like, what does it do for me? I can't buy things with it and stuff, which is technically not true. Like you mentioned, the app that lets you kind of make transactions with it and have a card. So say there's a mosque committee, or there's like a guy that works in the local butcher shop, right? What's the benefit of Bitcoin or using Bitcoin for that person? I know you've mentioned how it's not inflationary and those kind of benefits that are kind of more out there, like theoretical, but in terms of practical, I guess that is practical as well. But how would you kind of explain it?
Yeah. So I think the main challenge that we have in the West to understand the benefits of Bitcoin actually comes from the privilege we have for being in the West. Meaning, because we already have systems which kind of do what you would want it to do, then we think, okay, I don't really need anything else, really. I mean, it's like imagine you live in an area where a bus comes by every 2 minutes, literally. I mean, every 2 minutes, as you walk to the bus stop, a bus comes, then if your public transport system is so efficient and cheaper than a car, then it kind of becomes ridiculous to even have a car. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, is it fair now to say that cars are useless?
Yeah.
It's not, because it might be useless to you, but it doesn't mean it is useless.
Yeah.
If you take a step out of London or UK for a second, you would actually see that Bitcoin has a massive use case. But the thing is, it's about acknowledging that maybe you personally have a way of doing what you want to do without Bitcoin. The vast majority of mankind doesn't. And when you hear statistics like out of the 7 billion human beings that exist on planet Earth, only point something of them actually have a bank account, you think to yourself, raw. So they tell me like 6 billion human beings don't have access. They can't actually transact and part on the global economy. They can't do that at all. They can't save realistically without having pieces of paper or whatever they have in their hands. That's actually quite severe. So imagine a world, for example, you used to mention about butcher. Imagine a world where a butcher, doesn't actually matter where he sets his shop up. Someone can order meat from him from wherever they are, and it can be delivered, and he can accept payment without having to go through the banks. No one can seize his asset. No one can take his money from him. He can accept it immediately and deliver immediately. Or let's go to something like a farmer. We were talking about issues of merchants. One of the things that merchants do is they take resources from random places and put it together. So one of the things that farmers do, for example, like Asda, the Tesco's, what do they do? They bring resources from all these mad places from Palestine, from Brazil, fruits from all sorts of the world, and they bring it to your door, so you can literally buy quickly.
Yeah.
But imagine you can actually go on someone. There's nothing to stop you. To set up PayPal, you have to have a proof of address. You have to have passport. You have to do that kind of stuff. And many places can't even get access to PayPal. You can't do that. Whereas you can just download the app on the App Store, and you're live. You can start accepting payment. So what what does Bitcoin do for you? It actually gives you access to cash, digital cash, you have ownership of. No one can steal it from you, take it from you, and you now have access to the internet. So right now we're in COVID. This kind of one of the things that's I think that's probably more important to Bitcoin than the price going up at the moment is COVID. We've been locked in our houses. People have realized, wait a minute, I could actually work remotely. I don't actually have to live in the city anymore. I can actually get someplace cheaper, even probably another country, do my work there using Zoom, like we're on now, and get payment in Bitcoin. Done.
Yeah.
So there are so many things that can be done, but unfortunately, people focus on one thing. And we know what it is, brother. I think that's all we found now. Bitcoin just reached 60,000 US dollars, which is an all-time high. Everyone's like, yeah, Bitcoin. But the thing is, very few people are still waving the Bitcoin flag if it doesn't do that. You know what I'm saying? When it goes sideways, everyone gets like, this is boring, man. I'm not interested in Bitcoin anymore. Because they don't actually use it. But yeah, if you actually make effort, then yeah, it's very useful.
Jazakallah khairan. Yeah, I think if people do think about it, there are a lot of benefits. And even the transparency one you mentioned on Freshly Grounded about how if there was a mosque and they had like, you could see all their transactions and stuff. One little thing that comes up there. So, and if you look at, there's this company called ARK Invest, which is like a public ETF, and they do research into areas of growth potentially, and obviously broadband. So the one requirement for downloading the app would be internet in places where it's not, and that's growing massively. So within the next 5 years, in terms of global coverage, it's going to be a lot more. So that impediment of potentially not having access to the internet is going to go for a lot of the people. So then, like you said, the benefits of Bitcoin or something that they can access simply rather than having to do all that checks and the rest of it, that becomes even more pronounced.
I mean, like I said, it's down to necessity, really. I mean, I'm sure you're not involved in international commerce and trade, but if you were, you see a lot of friction between countries, and in terms of trading. Now, for example, some countries actually have to go to the marketplace, buy dollars, and then send those dollars to whoever they're buying the products to, because obviously they're in two separate countries, two separate jurisdictions, two separate currencies. That's a lot of friction, and it takes time to actually confirm the payment.
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually shocked to find out this week, actually, because London has actually done, England has actually done quite well in terms of its financial infrastructure. But did you know that in America, to transfer money from one state to another could take up to a week? I mean, I never knew that. I was like, wow, a week.
Yeah.
I mean, normally we have England, we have faster payments, which that's done like within a day. But if you leave the privilege of the UK, as actually, it's not that simple. And likewise, I mean, I know people who are abroad. Imagine you have family from one country, you've come to the UK to do some work and you'll send money back home. Bro, it'll take 10 minutes, it's done. They've got money, they can spend it. Whereas before, what do you have to do? Western Union and proof of address. I remember one time my auntie told me to send money to Jamaica a few years back. I was shocked. It took me over half an hour just to send like 100 quid. And there was like almost like 7% fee on that. I'm like, my days.
Yeah. Okay. Jazakallah khairan. So just wanted to go over something in brief. What do you think it is about? Naturally, people have this skepticism, and again, on cryptohashreview.com, you word it nicely where you say righteous anxiety, right? And do you think it's a similar thing to whenever there's something new? So I've heard people talk about how when radio first came out, the scholars said that it was, some scholars said, correct me if I'm wrong, that is haram or whatever. And then hundreds of years ago, the printing press, a similar thing happened, which disadvantaged the Muslims, if you think about it. So do you think it's that kind of skepticism of what's new, which in a sense can be necessary as well? With Bitcoin, I think it's like the default kind of thinking is that, oh, this sounds a bit like, is this even halal? You know what I mean? Can you just talk about that?
So it's kind of, it's ironic really, because a lot of the objections towards Bitcoin are valid. I'll probably say all of them are valid and correct. If their assumptions were for who's made this Bitcoin, except that Bitcoin is a trustless system and it's open source. So yeah, and any other system, like if I made like a currency with a database on my personal computer, then yeah, I mean, who are you? You can switch off your computer and run after the money. I get that. But if you have a distributed ledger across the whole globe, running on software that is open source, so you can look at the code and analyze it for yourself, then you've removed that as a factor. But that's the point. Most people don't go beyond just the basic surface understanding of Bitcoin. They think, what it is, they assume that Bitcoin is like the old system we've had before. That's basically what it is. So Bitcoin is just another version of what we already have. And we know how what we have, the ruling of that. So basically it's like that. Or for example, one of the issues, one of the objections that they have, other than I know it's a classic one. Can't think of one of
the main one.
The better example
is like, oh, we can't hold. It's a silly one if you go even one level deep, but it's like we can't hold it.
Yes, tangible.
Yeah,
that's it. Tangibility. Yeah. So that is a big one. And that's a legacy. That's a legacy effect. It's a legacy effect. It's like did you know that when they first made cars, they used to be able to direct the cars with reins? As in, you turn the car left with a rope and turn the car right with this rope. But why did they do that? Because they had horses. So it's called skeuomorphism. Skeuomorphism basically means where you integrate legacy systems into new systems, because that's what people are used to. To go to a completely different system is so drastic as a change, people won't be able to keep up. And that's kind of what Apple did. When Apple first made the iPhone, a lot of the icons were essentially icons of real world things. Like the notepad was a picture of a notepad, the phone was a picture of a phone. Oh, I mean, everything was a picture of what it was in the real world. And that was fine. Communicate to people what this app does by giving you an image of what it does in the real world. Yeah. Until they changed their design to a non-skeuomorphic design, and everyone now gets the gist. So even in telecommunications, it's just another one of the most amazing things about the human brain. So we had normal analog phones, yeah. So through normal wire, analog. So obviously with analog phones, there's like a constant hiss, because you have to compress the sound waves to a bandwidth that the lines could hold. Yeah. So you get that kind of background noise that you can always hear that someone's there. So when they changed their phone lines to digital, essentially they removed the hiss, because they're able to compress the data into bytes, zeros and ones. And then you remove the hiss.
Yeah.
And what happened, the other guy hung up, because when they stopped talking, it was dead silent.
Yeah.
So they actually artificially put back in a hiss, just to let people know that someone's still on the phone. So imagine that they actually had to downgrade the quality of the sound just to make you realize that the phone call is still happening. So they're still using they're still kind of reflecting the old way of looking at it, although the technology has moved forward. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So same thing with Bitcoin and the issue of tangibility. In all the books of fiqh, Islamic rulings, there's a heavy dependency and emphasis on the physical. So for example, if let's look at this, like this thing here. If I have this in my hand, then, and you say it's yours, me as a judge would say, oh, okay, well, he's got it in his hand, evidence of actually yours. So physical possession is very important, because that's how throughout history, and still to this day, you kind of define ownership. It's in my hand. Same thing with transaction. If I was to give you gold and you give me gold, or I'll give you gold and you give me silver, how do I know that there's finality in that transaction? It's in my hand. That's how define finality. So how do you understand finality in a Bitcoin transaction? What does that look like?
The ledger. I don't know, the signal's just gone, I think.
Do you know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
It's a ledger. You hear me? Yeah, I mean, you say the ledger, but I mean, to someone who has no idea what the ledger is, what does that mean to me? I mean, if we can't touch it, then it's not real, isn't it? I mean, and this is where we have to really now, as Muslims and as human beings even, really start reassessing what it means to own something and what is even something, because we now live in a digital age, which is basically the information age, where things are owned and it's pure information. In the past, if you owned something, it was purely physical. I couldn't really own a poem. How do I own a poem in the past? You wrote a poem.
Yeah.
How do you own it, and how do you stop me from memorizing it and then reciting it? There's no way of doing that.
It's just reputation based, I guess.
Reputation based. Whereas today, I can actually send you something, and it's now on your computer. And now with blockchain, which is the first time in human history, one of the biggest innovations that blockchain brought to us, and what Bitcoin brought to us, was that for the first time in human history, we were able to have ownership of knowledge. I could prove that I own something that is not really physical, that is not really there. And that's essentially what it is.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a very difficult transition for people. But I don't think it's difficult conceptually, but it's difficult for those who are not interested in learning. I think that's generally what it is. If you go on my Twitter, you see many people trolling, saying Bitcoin's rubbish. And are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. But I think the connection for the video just come back. It's come back.
If you go on a lot of my Twitter discussions, you see people saying, "Oh, Bitcoin is this and rubbish and blah blah blah."
Yeah.
But what you find is that no one is really willing to even bother looking at it and say, "Look, what you're saying is not true." If you want to go and look, I can't be bothered. No one's interested. So if you add that factor, people are not interested anyway. They're happy where they are, and the fact that it's difficult to learn. It's going to take a very long time before the general people, including the ulama, to actually take the time to learn it.
I think where it gets more in the press because of Elon Musk, Tesla buying into it, and a lot of these funds buying into it. But then even that, it does it from the perspective of a store of, as in an investment, something that's going to rise in price. It's not from the perspective of how you were saying about viewing it as money, rather than something that you just not speculating, but you're just hoping the price is going to go up. But I think most people initially adopt it because of that.
Well, you know what it is, brother. I know some people, especially those who are haters of Bitcoin, and probably only watching this video just to find fault in me. But I'm gonna show you a parallel, which is an ironic one, but a true one. Now, I'm not. There's not an indication of that I'm a fanatic and that I'm gone over the top. It's just a parallel, because this is human nature.
Yeah.
If you look at the Islam as a religion, when the Messenger of Allah became the prophet of Islam and was delivering that message to the people, and if you look of Islam by the people, you would find that the same characteristics that the people at the time exhibited in terms of adoption of Islam are the same characteristics you find with the adoption of Bitcoin. Let me tell you why. Because currency, Bitcoin, is all belief-based. People need to realize that value is about belief, it's about confidence. Bitcoin only has value because enough people believe in it and are willing to pay money for it. That's the only reason it has value. If we all agreed today that Bitcoin is worth nothing and just decide to stop mining because it's useless, it would become useless. I mean, it doesn't matter how good the technology is. If no one uses it, it's useless. So it's belief-based. So the question is, if Bitcoin is fundamentally a belief, just like all things are belief, how would that look? How would it look, practically speaking, for the world to change their beliefs in our current system of fiat and the US petrodollar to a totally different system with different foundations different fundamentals,
Yeah.
who also look at Quraysh. Why did Quraysh lie against the Messenger of Allah, although they knew that they were lying? Because they were invested in the current system, the status quo. They knew that if Islam became a thing, they essentially would lose their influence. They would lose their power. People would go to Muhammad for influence and for power. So actually, Quraysh were more opposing to Islam.
Yeah.
You can almost say for financial and dunya reasons. Even Abu Talib, who supported Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and actually believed in Islam fundamentally, he said himself, Islam is the best religion, still wouldn't accept it because of principles that he was stuck by that took him to his grave. So some people, it's the same kind of thing exists with Bitcoin. Some people don't accept Bitcoin out of principle, because effectively that would mean that the current belief that they have, the current system that they have, is false. And that's actually quite difficult for some people to accept, unlike myself, who actually hate the system from before. For those who fundamentally hate the system as it is, for them it's easy. I don't like the system anyway. I don't want anything different. But for someone who actually fundamentally believes in the system, believes in what it is, and especially those who have made money in the system, that's the very good point. Especially those who make money from the system, it's like, wow, who knows and how can and blah blah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it follows the same kind of pattern as a belief system, as a belief pattern.
Yeah, that's mashallah, that's very interesting, because it tackles the kind of psychology behind it. There's always different incentives and stuff. And okay, so next thing I wanted to move on.
Wait, before we go to the next thing, just to highlight the belief system and how deeply rooted it is in the psyche of the Muslims. I read a fatwa 2 weeks ago from an individual. I think it was in Kuwait, a Kuwaiti scholar.
Okay.
And his conclusion was that Bitcoin was haram. Fair enough. But do you know one of the reasons why he said Bitcoin is haram? Because Bitcoin threatens the current central banking system. My mouth dropped, thinking, are you absolutely serious? What you're saying here? That because Bitcoin threatens the current banking system, central banking system, which is built on riba, by the way, you say it's haram, i.e. he's drinking the Kool-Aid of the central banking system so much that he's actually given a legal ruling that a person who buys and uses Bitcoin in his daily life is in sin. That's how deeply rooted that is. And if you can think about it, it makes no sense. I mean, why would any scholar who claims to be a scholar support the banking system? But that's the Kool-Aid many of us are actually drinking, and we can't actually see it, some of us.
Would he, I'm just, obviously I'm not familiar with it, but would he not say, or potentially try to argue, that this is kind of, if it leads to the collapse of the central banking system, is going to cause disruption in the country? And you know how they link everything back to like the kind of the ruling system. If that gets destabilized, then it's going to cause facade and people are going to start going mental. I think, was that the kind of link behind it? Or
I would assume that would be the case, because I know some ulama in the past have said that one reason why Bitcoin is haram because it harms the economy. That was how they just left it. It harms the economy, and I can only speculate. But that's in their vision what it means, because it doesn't harm the economy.
Okay.
But that's what they speculate. So I guess if you're bought into a system of central banking printing of money, and your economy is based on this premise of building infrastructure and doing your commerce on borrowed money, as in from riba-based money, then something that threatens your model. But the problem with that is, we're essentially saying is, we're in a pool of crap, excuse the French, we're in a pool of crap, and any attempt to exit this crap is going to make the crap spread. So let's just sit here and stay where we are. Now, the thing is, that was the same thing that Quraysh said, isn't it? Didn't Quraysh, when they approached the Messenger of Allah, said, look, you're causing fitna. You're splitting the mother from her son, from husband and wife. If you want money, we'll give you money. If you want the status, we'll give you status. If you want this, just stop your da'wah. So they actually used as an argument to say, stop giving da'wah to Islam, is that you're causing disruption to the current system.
Yeah.
That Bitcoin is haram because it harms the economy, is a Qurayshi da'wah. It's a da'wah of Quraysh. You're basically saying, let's stay in our current system of evil and riba, because otherwise some are going to get harmed. But brother, we are being harmed every single day. Look at Lebanon. They lost over 50% of their value of their currency within a day. In one single day, their currency collapsed. It never had collapsed because something happened. It's because the system was fragile. It was already breaking in the first place. COVID just took it over the edge. So it's basically that's basically what it is. It's, you know, rather than preaching, I feel like a preacher. I feel like a preacher.
Mashallah.
But yeah, that's basically what I think.
Yeah, Ustad, how much time have you got? Because I've already taken up about an hour of your time, so we can have a part two.
I'm cool.
Okay, Jazakallah. So I wanted to move on to
cool. I'm cool.
Okay, Jazakallah khairan. So in terms of, you know, the kind of unified, there's different fatwa bodies around the world, right? What's the unified position, if there is one, or at least from the main bodies? Because obviously that's the easiest way for the layperson to kind of.
So when it comes to Bitcoin, what I found from scanning the different fatwa is that what it seems like, and Allah knows best, is that certain pieces of information was taken in regards to Bitcoin a few years back. I don't know how long, but in the past. And some have issued verdicts based on those pieces of information those years ago. And it seems as though other scholars picked up on what they have said and essentially accepted the premise of the fatwa and essentially agreed to that. So it's a bit like me saying to you, is this glass haram? Well, Sheikh so-and-so said that this glass is made of khamr, and every time you touch it with your hands, it makes you drunk, so therefore it's haram. So you say, okay, yeah, this is haram because every time it touches your hands, it makes you drunk. And what you find is that most scholars who say that actually haven't asked themselves, wait, does that actually happen? Does it actually make you drunk? And is it actually made from khamr? Does that make sense? And I'm guessing this is the case. I haven't asked them, but I can only see that being the case that if you look at all the fatwa, they seem to repeat the same lies. So I know it's not a conspiracy. It's not like they all agreed to make a lie, because they're all detached. Some are in Egypt, some are in Palestine. Some of the fatwa come from Palestine. Some of the fatwa have come from Turkey. Some of the they're all over the place. They're not like, there's not a unified body of one thing, but they seem to all repeat the same misinformation. So it seems to have started somewhere and it's just been carried on. And the only scholars who have actually changed their position to now say Bitcoin is halal are the scholars who actually re-looked at the situation. They've actually said in their fatwa, after further research and looking at the situation, I find that my previous fatwa was incorrect and this is how it is. So for example, Abdurrahman al-Barrak, he's a Saudi scholar, he said that in his fatwa that I did used to have this position, but after looking at Bitcoin, I found that my previous objections of X, Y, and Z was wrong because of X. He actually stipulated his previous reasons, and that this is now his new position because those were wrong. There's another individual, I think called Faraz or something like that in the UK. Same thing. He issued a fatwa in 2018, then issued another one in 2019, changing his position. So what you will find is that those who take the time to actually look and verify the information, they will find actually that assumption or that information I said is actually wrong. Actually, that the whole premise of my understanding of the economy is actually wrong. Actually, the threat of Bitcoin is actually threatens the banks, doesn't affect the people. You know what I'm saying? That all these questions, once they learn that, I'm sure they will change their position. It will happen because, like I said, no one's going to keep their fatwa as it is when it's based on a lie. It will definitely happen. The only question is, will they take the time to do that? And also, one last point is that I think there is also there's also I would say in the nicest way possible, a fatherly concern and I put it in the nicest way possible, a fatherly concern from the ulama that they want to protect the ummah. They see Muslims running and rushing towards scam this and scam that and Ponzi scheme this and Ponzi scheme that. And to them, how can a currency go up 10,000% in a year? I mean, it's ridiculous. It sounds like a scam. So that's already the mindset they're going into when it comes to Bitcoin, is that it has to be a scam. It doesn't make sense. Even kuffar doesn't make sense to them. It's like, well, wait, the upside of Bitcoin is just insane. We've never seen anything like this before in the history of man. So it has to be a scam. But I would answer that, the issue of the price increase, I would answer that in a very simple terms. And again, it's about changing the perception. Adam and his wife, Adam and his wife, and his children, and his grandchildren, they were a small number of people, not many. As the population of mankind grew, and as they began to use currencies to interact and exchange, essentially, I mean, I'm gonna jump forward to gold. Eventually, when they tried to use gold as their currency to exchange, some people decided to mine gold. In essence, make money. Go to the mountain, mine the gold, mint it or whatever, and now they've made money. So the rate at which the gold came into society was in proportion to those who mined it. So the more the population grew, the more mined gold was mined. And as it grew, the more it mined.
Yeah.
So you can see almost like a steady growth in certain people on planet Earth using it. Now, fast forward to the 21st century, where we have a Bitcoin that came out of nowhere. Essentially, what we're witnessing right now is kind of like the full history from beginning, from nothing out at $2,000, playing out in the space of 10 years. So if you can imagine, if you can compress the value of gold, the history of gold from 5, 6, 7, 10,000 years, if you compress all those thousands of years into this 10 years, you'd see the same kind of thing. You see the price of gold go up and it go down, it go up, and because the price of gold is not the same. It changes throughout history. Gold and silver change throughout history, but it changes slowly because time is slow, because manufacturing is slow, because commerce was slow. Yeah. But now we're in a digital age. We're now in a digital age where everything happens so fast. So actually, if you look at it from numbers perspective, number direction, Bitcoin's price going up and down so quickly is actually the history of all money for mankind sped up very quickly. Yeah. So when Bitcoin gets to the stage where it's ubiquitous, when everyone now uses it, and it's now commerce, international trade uses it, governments use it, everyone uses it for thing, and it's just everywhere. When it gets to that level, it's fully adopted. Then we've gone and kind of got to the final stage of the thing, but I would guess that the price of Bitcoin stays the same because there's no trading in that Bitcoin at that time. Everyone's now using it, so it's now it's reached its end game. But to get from here to here, we have to go through that path. So yeah, it seems ridiculous. It seems insane, but that's actually what would happen to any currency that comes out of thin air, in essence, or that comes into existence, and then we transition from this to that.
Okay.
And funnily enough, I'll extend my parallel. I'll extend my analogy to Islam again. Remember when Allah mentioned that when you conquer Mecca, you see people enter Islam in large numbers. Yeah. That basically refers to that S curve where once you reach the initial adoption, you start seeing a spike in adoption. That spike is essentially what you see every single time Bitcoin has its halving or its cycle. We see that in interest start jumping on board, and that's where the price goes up.
Jazakallah khair. Honestly, it's fascinating, this conversation for me, alhamdulillah. But okay, so what I'm going to do now is, the next stage was meaningful implementation, but what I'm going to say is people that are interested in getting into it, you can go and visit that on Crypto Hash Review, because there's a whole section on that, how people can get into it. And I'm sure people are already bombarded with all the kind of exchanges and stuff. But so let's say for people, say they've got into Bitcoin or they have a bit of Bitcoin. So let's kind of jump a level. Let's take a case example, someone that has Bitcoin, a bit of Ethereum, right? and they may be thinking of dabbling in like a few of the other altcoins or whatnot. Okay, so for the time being, they're just kind of saving it or holding it, right? And I think I was looking at something the other day that the people that have held Bitcoin for over 2 years, they say that they're the least likely to sell it, whereas the people who have obviously experienced a massive gain in the last year, they're probably going to sell it. Whereas so there's a different mindset between the initial or even the people who have had it for a few years relative to the people getting it now. So what? Yep.
So just at that one point there, I'm gonna again extend my analogy. Isn't that kind of similar, again, to the Muhajirin and Ansar who accepted Islam in the early days, who had a strong hand in the deen, compared to those who accepted Islam after the conquest, who just literally entered Islam, just literally like that. So again, you always find that those who are new are not the same as those who are old. Those who are old have been through all the punishment that Bitcoin can give you, because Bitcoin does what it likes to do. It will go up and it will go down. It will eventually go down and reach an equilibrium to the market. So those who just jumped in just for the sake of, I just want to make a few money, make a few bucks, they'll jump in, they'll jump out. But some of those who jump in because they came for the money would realize, but hold on a minute, this is actually better than the current system. Why would I want to go back? Some will will actually stay because they realize it's actually a better option. So again, you see the same parallel between the adoption of Islam and Bitcoin. And I say not because Bitcoin is a religion. No, I'm just a caveat. I'm not saying it's a religion, but because they're fundamentally down to belief. Do you believe in it? So people like me, I believe in Bitcoin because for me, it's the best form of money that resembles gold and has all the benefits of gold. You have to earn it. You can't fake it, and you have all the benefits of gold. But for some people, they don't care about the faking and stuff. Here or there, all they want is a Lambo. They want a Lamborghini and they want a new house. That's what they want. So for them, it is what it is. But yeah, go on. So I don't want to stop cutting to what you're saying. Go on.
No, Jazakallah khair. I won't take too much of your time. More kind of quick fire. Let's say, because the advice that I got was that once you get above a certain amount, it's best to take the money off the exchanges. So let's use one of the popular exchanges, Coinbase or whatever, right? What amount would you say? Would you not even go there? Or would you say once you get past a certain amount, it's best to take it off there and put it into a wallet? Where's the kind of the boundary for you?
So first, before answering that question, the first question would be, why would anyone even bother with Bitcoin? I mean, we just spent like over an hour just discussing why Bitcoin is something you should be bothered about. But once a person has decided, okay, this Bitcoin sounds interesting, I'm gonna have to look into it further, then my first advice is to exactly do that. Look into it further, find a reason beyond the price increase to be involved in Bitcoin. So it could be financial freedom, it could be escaping riba, it could be because you want to migrate to another country, you want ease of transport of your wealth. It could be lots of reasons. But you just want a reason to be involved in Bitcoin besides that's going up, because the price won't always go up. There will be 50%, 60%, maybe even 70% correction during this bull at some point. It will happen, and there's reason for that, but I don't go into it now. But so I'm saying find a reason beyond that. That's first. Once you have that reason, then you need to find avenues to scale in your wealth into Bitcoin to a level and degree you're comfortable with. Some may go all the way and just chuck all their savings into Bitcoin. You could do that if you want to. Some may want to do scaling slowly. So what they'll do is that they might what's called dollar cost average. Dollar cost average basically means you choose a time frame, a time period, or schedule, I should say, a schedule, and you buy Bitcoin, the same amount of Bitcoin or same amount of pounds worth of Bitcoin every single time. So you might choose 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 200 pounds every week, every month, every 2 weeks. And you just scale in, just do it. Stick to the point, stick to the plan. Now, why do you do that? It's basically you're effectively doing a savings program that avoids the hassle and headache of the price fluctuation. So you're not worried about getting in cheaper, selling it higher,
The
what kind of
dips,
nonsense. Buying the dip, forget all that stuff, because you lose more money than you make it. So just say, look, if it goes high, you buy it. If it goes low, you buy it. The average will be in the middle. That's basically what dollar cost average does. It makes sure you're averaging out the movements and you're getting the thing. And for those who are listening and are interested in seeing how does that play out, there's a website called DCABTC.com. So DCA, dollar cost averaging,
Yeah.
BTC, which is Bitcoin.com. So that's just those six characters. DCABTC.com. And basically it shows you can actually plug in the numbers. You put in a plan. I want to do £10 weekly, and you can backward forecast. If you did this 4 years ago, how much money would I have today in dollars and Bitcoin, like that. So as a long-term, maybe 4 to 5 year plan, that'll be the best thing to do for 99.9% of people out there. We're not going to be interested in making this their full-time trading job. I don't advise trading for anyone. I think you should just basically continue your day job, continue what you're doing, but just choose and decide to put your savings on this plan into Bitcoin. And if you have your pension, which is in a haram pension, you want to put it a better pension scheme, that'll be another option. Rather than put into a pension scheme, put into Bitcoin. I guarantee you will be better than what pension you have. And that'll be your plan to scale into Bitcoin. Now, you mentioned about keeping money on exchange or your own wallet. Now, that again is down to a person's personal circumstance. For some people, a reputable exchange is just a better option, because the whole idea of managing their private keys, keeping it safe, they must. I mean, there was a sister the other day I helped try and get set up, and I didn't realize that she was dyslexic. So even writing down her private keys technically was a risk, was a financial risk. She could write down the keys wrong.
Yeah.
So you have to plan your strategy to store your wealth, and think of it like this: you've been given 1 kilogram, 2 kilogram, 3 kilograms of gold, which is like lots of money. Yeah. Where would you hide it? How would you hide it? How would you secure it? That's your mindset. You are your own bank. So if you have a lot of money, I wouldn't advise, generally speaking, to leave lots of money onto an exchange, because there is a saying in the Bitcoin world called "not your keys, not your Bitcoin." Meaning, if you don't have your Bitcoin on your own personal private keys, then really you don't really have Bitcoin. You have an IOU to Bitcoin. The exchange owes you Bitcoin, but something may go wrong, don't give it to you. So just remember that. Just like a bank today, when you put money in the bank, people think that they have money in the bank. No, you don't. You have a liability. You have an IOU from the bank, and the bank most likely will pay the IOU back to you, but it's possible that they won't, which has happened many places in the world that I'm not going to go into now. Just Google it. Yeah. So if you have large amounts of money, try and spend time learning, investing, and educating yourself about how to have your private keys, how to keep it safe, and keeping your private keys. Yeah.
Jazakallah khairan. So last few questions, Ustad, if you don't mind.
Go for it.
So what, just briefly, I was listening to a podcast the other day on Tim Ferriss' podcast, and it was with the founder of Ethereum. He's only 28 years old or something, right? Yeah. Very interesting. Yeah. What do you think about Ethereum as a platform? Because that's normally it's the 1-2, isn't it? Someone knows about Bitcoin, they probably start dabbling in Ethereum as well.
Yeah. So for me, and I think most people at some point will come to this realization anyway, as everyone does after some time of learning. Bitcoin is the only one you should really be concerning yourself with. If you want to look at other coins, Ethereum, Litecoin, blah, 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 then think of them not as a currency, not as alternative to riba, but just as an investment opportunity of a potential gain over a short period of time. So maybe you might have some Ethereum because you think in between now and let's say September, it will go up X amount in Bitcoin price. Then yeah, great. But I will never advise anyone to hold alternative coins for any long period of time, because historically speaking, every single altcoin has never been up, never outperformed Bitcoin of money itself. Listen carefully. Bitcoin is solving the problem of money itself. There's not an industry on planet Earth that Bitcoin isn't addressing. The housing industry, there's the derivatives industry, there's the stocks industry, the bonds industry, everything. Bitcoin is dealing with that aspect of money itself. Ethereum is able to certain avenues. It's not dealing with everybody. So therefore, its market its ability to capture the market is limited, if that makes sense. So yeah, you could invest in Bitcoin, in Ethereum for whatever reason, but for anyone who's just new to Bitcoin, new to this whole space, I would say don't waste your time or your money buying other coins. Stick to Bitcoin and spend your time now in the next 4 years educating yourself. So learn about other coins. Why are they important? Why is anything important? And remove this idea that they're ever going to replace Bitcoin. That's just something to say. Anyone these coins and say, yeah, it's a Bitcoin killer. It's not. It's not going to kill Bitcoin.
With Ethereum, they say that it's a different kind of proposition because it's not seen as much of a store of value because it's not even what's the word? It's not finite Ethereum, so it's not going to have the same kind of potential hold on value as Bitcoin. But they say that
so Ethereum. Go on.
No, sorry.
They say
that you can use it for different use, as in build applications on top of it, and then like this NFT thing that's come out, non-fungible.
Yeah. So Ethereum, like I said, back to what I just said a minute ago about the issue of what is it tackling. You could do a lot on Ethereum. You could do a lot on Ethereum and other platforms, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the future. But as money, there is no real difference between Ethereum and our current system, except that our current system is based on riba, and Ethereum isn't. But in terms of the issue of money printing and the issue of inflation, it still exists in Ethereum. In terms of control and centralization, it still exists. So a few people on planet Earth kind of direct where Ethereum goes. If they want to decide something, they'll decide it. So you kind of exchange the central banks for Vitalik Buterin, which is the founder of Ethereum. So don't be deluded to think, that Ethereum is somehow going to beat Bitcoin. Because you got to understand, Bitcoin's value proposition is that it is a currency that isn't owned by anybody. Yeah. It's like gold. No one owns every gold. No one decides the amount of gold in circulation. Gold is gold. It exists and it's there. And that is Bitcoin. Bitcoin exists. It's there. No one decides how much Bitcoin exists. No one decides what happens. Bitcoin is a Bitcoin. But with Ethereum and these other coins, they have leaders. They have founders. They have committees. They have meetings. They decide things. So it's more akin to a business and a platform like Windows, for example, Windows. So you might think of Ethereum like Windows, investing money in Microsoft. Yeah, you could do that, but don't think that Microsoft is somehow decentralized and open to all. No, it's a closed system, some degree. So Ethereum is more open than Microsoft, but it is not currency. So I'm saying, rather than confuse people by saying, put some money here and put some money here and it shall be a millionaire. No. Just focus. If you want to have savings, Bitcoin is the way you want to go. If you want to invest in projects, look at the projects, assess the project as an investment. Look at the people, look at what they're doing, look at what problems they're solving. Treat it as a stock, treat it as an investment, but don't treat it as a currency.
Jazakallah khairan. Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot a bit. I know you probably already riled the the potential refuters, as they say, with the analogy, right? But this one's a bit different. So maybe a bit of fun, just a range, not something specific. Price prediction for the next 5 years, Bitcoin. So
before I answer that question, two things to mention. One thing is, why does the price go up in the first place? I think that's probably the fundamental premise we need to understand as human beings, trying to understand this, and Muslims trying to understand what's going on here. Why does the price of Bitcoin go up? Is it because it's internet magic internet money that are just destined to make people rich if they get in early enough? Well, actually, that's a byproduct, but the value of Bitcoin is tied to adoption. So, okay, let's do simple maths. And whoever's interested in going through simple maths, just get a piece of paper and pen and just jot down so many numbers, or your own numbers or my numbers, up to you, but just write this down. So there's only 21 million Bitcoins that will ever exist in history at all. That's it. There's not, it can never be more, than that. And there are already 7 billion human beings alive. So if every human wanted to just have some Bitcoin, we can't all have a whole one. Just as a thought experiment, if every human wanted to have some Bitcoin, we couldn't actually have a whole Bitcoin each. There isn't enough. So, okay, imagine we distributed Bitcoin evenly amongst every single person on planet Earth. Everyone gets the same amount of Bitcoin spread evenly. Great.
Yeah.
We're all now Bitcoin owners.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you want to pay your employee his wages. Yeah. So that means if he was getting, let's say for example, he was getting $3,000 a month. What would a $3,000 look like? Oh, it wouldn't be one Bitcoin evenly to everyone. So this basically works out to be, I think, something like 0.0002 Bitcoin, some number like that. So it's really a small fraction. So if you try and the question is, what price does each Bitcoin need to be for us to have, or for what we have each to equal our wages? Think of that as I'll say it one more time. What price does one Bitcoin need to be for my small fraction of a Bitcoin to be equal at least my wages, or my wages for the year? That means the price of Bitcoin has to be in the millions, not in thousands. Bitcoin at the moment is extremely cheap if it's something that we're going to use as international commerce between countries and nation states and whatnot. So the fact that one Bitcoin now is $60,000, that is extremely cheap on that premise. So in the long term, Bitcoin price is going to go up, because the more people adopt it, the more rare it becomes, the more harder it becomes to actually achieve one, and therefore it needs to be diluted more. The price needs to go up more. So in the long term, I think quite easily well over $10 million per Bitcoin. And I know it sounds funny. But if you were in Bitcoin, if you asked me that same question in Bitcoin when it was only at $1, that Bitcoin would be at $60. That was equally funny. But you know, it's actually easier. Listen carefully. It's actually easier to go from $60,000 to 10 million than to go from 1 to 60,000. Do the maths. If you actually do the maths, how much percentage gain do you need to go from $1 to $60,000 compared to $60,000 to 10 million? It's actually quite easy. It's not actually that difficult to go to 10 million. So 10 million is at the very least within the next 10 years. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, why does the Bitcoin price go up every 4 years? That's a very important point. I'm probably mentioning other videos, but I'll mention it here again. The reason why Bitcoin goes up every 4 years, statistically, is every 10 minutes, a certain amount of Bitcoin is released to the network, to miners. At the moment, it is 6.125 Bitcoin. So every 10 minutes, 6.125 Bitcoin is being given out of thin air, being created and given to a miner who's earned it. But in the next 3 years' time, the amount of Bitcoin that's being released is going to halve. So it's going to be 3.0 something, 3.0625 Bitcoin. So when the amount of Bitcoin that comes out into circulation at a steady pace halves, it now drops by half. That means the balance of supply and demand that was initially there, when you have those who are bringing in the supply and those who are buying it in the supply and the demand, when that supply is dropped, then the demand has to match at some point. The demand has to match. And only demand can match if the price comes to equilibrium. So the price going up right now is a result of the sudden drop in the issuance of Bitcoin. So at some point in this year, maybe the early next year, the price of Bitcoin will stop going up drastically, probably even come down a bit as well. And then we'll see probably another 3 years where Bitcoin price will start going sideways, not going up drastically, maybe going down a bit. And everyone gets bored of it. People are not talking about Bitcoin anymore. People start getting on with their lives and start talking about other things. And then when the next halving comes, the same shock happens again. There's not enough Bitcoin being made to meet the demand that's in the market. Therefore, the price has to increase to match that demand. And you'll go through the same cycle again. It happened 3 times already. It happened in 2012. It happened in 2017. And it's happened again now. Every 4 years, we have a halving of Bitcoin. And that'll be the, so this particular cycle, I expect that Bitcoin will probably go or peak So I think the minimum it will peak at will be $280,000. The minimum it will peak at, that's the highest point, will be $280,000. It might come down to maybe 150, maybe even 100, who knows? But I reckon the peak this particular cycle will be 280, and maybe the next cycle will be in the millions. But yeah, that is my price prediction. Now the last part is price important? Now, some people like myself will say, you know what, Bitcoin is Bitcoin. Whether the price is $1 million or £1, Bitcoin still gives me freedom, still gives me all the stuff we mentioned before. But it actually is very important, because the price of Bitcoin demonstrates to the world its value. It's conveying to you a message. That's one of the things you learn in economics. If you read a book on basic economics, price is a message. The price in the market is delivering a message to the people. So if for example, all the cows in London or in the UK die, and there's no more, and there's a shortage of milk, that will be reflected in the price. The price is delivering a message to the people saying, no, there's not much milk available, so the price has to reflect that shortage. So the price of Bitcoin is actually reflecting the adoption. More people coming in, less Bitcoin is available for everyone to have. Therefore, the price needs to reflect that adoption curve. So don't think of the price as being, oh, it's magic money making us rich. No, it's the more people come on board, the more the price will go up. Because it has to.
Jazakallah. What's the chances? What do you think? Because even there's still some famous or well-known kind of investors like Ray Dalio, right, who are skeptics, right? And they say it's a matter of time before there's this regulation that, because even still people give disclaimers. They say, oh, it could still go to nothing, right? So what are the, I don't know, people struggle with the regulation aspect. You know, if the government just comes in and says, no, they've tried certain countries and unsuccessfully, like China, I think. And you can always say that there's going to develop like
China, Nigeria, Iran, Pakistan, a lot of countries have tried to ban it, and they've all failed.
Yeah.
So what's chances of what's question? What's chances of?
What do you think are the chances of it suddenly, not suddenly, but of it coming to nothing basically, and it just being a boom and bust? I know it's based on what you've discussed before, it's hard to kind of, because of the value proposition, but still, in terms of like, just that question.
Yeah, so that's always an issue people have, which is interesting. And ironic if you think about it, because worried Bitcoin going to zero, whilst living in a system that is actually going to zero. The money we have in our hands is going to zero. And we know this. It's actually statistically confirmed that through inflation, our money is going to zero. Since 1971, the dollar has lost 97% of its value. 97% of the value of the dollar has been for 50 years, and it's not stopping. They printed last year 60% of all the dollars that has ever been printed. Think of that for a second. Let me say it one more time and a bit slower. In 2020, the American government printed 60% of the total number of dollars that has ever been printed in 1 year. And this year, we actually are living in a system that is actually going to zero, as in confirmed, just doing it slowly. And we're worried about a system that may go to zero. I mean, logically speaking, from an investment perspective, that's ridiculous. I mean, why would you stay in a boiling pot that's going to kill you, rather than take the risk of jumping out and you may die in a pan? I mean, you may die, but you're gonna die if you stay where you are. You know what I mean? And I think someone gave an analogy, same kind of thing, of the Titanic. The Titanic is sinking. It's a huge ship, but it is sinking. Everyone's abandoning the ship on these little dinghies, these little tiny boats that are like in the middle of nowhere, and the iceberg, and it's cold and that kind of stuff. And you're worried about jumping into that ocean, drowning in the ocean, going to a little dinghy, when you're actually on a sinking boat. You're on a sinking ship. The way the human mind works is really ajib. But putting that aside, let's entertain this. Can Bitcoin go to zero? Yes, Bitcoin can go to zero if something catastrophic happens. So let's look what actually needs to happen for Bitcoin to go to zero. Okay, number one, every single node, and that means a node person who keeps a copy of the entire blockchain. Every single node that exists on planet Earth needs to be destroyed and wiped off the face of the Earth.
How many nodes are there roughly? Would you, as in?
Yeah, so there's a website. I can't remember the name of the website, but if you just Google it, there's a website which gives you a map of the world of where the known nodes are. I'm not sure the name of it, but I'm sure the word node is in the URL. I'm not sure it is, but it gives you a map of where the known nodes are.
Yeah.
And there's like something in excess of like 10,000 different nodes. And those are the nodes that we know of. And probably even more than that of nodes that are unknown, as in someone who's just running a node in their own host. So you could do it yourself. You can actually download the software and run a node yourself, and no one would know you're running a node. So basically,
is it bit nodes? I've found one called bitnodes.io that looks something like what you're saying. It's got like a map of the world.
Blue and white?
Yeah.
Blue and white.
Yep.
That's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
So that gives you a little map of the nodes.
Yeah.
And that shows you the nodes that we know. Those who have advertised to the world, we're a node, and this is my IP address. And if you want to query me and know about transactions, you can ask us. This is right here. Or if you want to synchronize, then that way you can do that. So, but there are many nodes who receive copies of the transactions, but they don't actually take part in the network like that. So, number one, every node needs to be destroyed. That needs to happen. Or every miner on planet Earth needs to just stop mining out of the blue for whatever reason. Needs to be the case. So that'll be a systemic failure of the system. That's something that has to happen. And one of the reasons why Bitcoin is so strong is because it's decentralized. Can I take down Google? I can, because I know where Google lives. I know their address, and I literally can take down Google because I know where they exist. Whereas Bitcoin, we don't actually know where Bitcoin exists. It doesn't exist anywhere. It exists everywhere. It's like trying to kill. It reminds me of if someone's ever had cockroach infestation in the house or ants in the house or whatever not. You try to kill all these ants. Yet you don't know where they exist. I mean, how would you kill them all? You don't know where you have to do something else. You have to try and get them all to come to you. For example, you put that poison, maybe sugar, kind of stuff. But you can't actually go and say, I'm going to kill every ant, because there's always an ant somewhere else. All you need is a few ants to still exist, and it will just continue. So a systemic failure is near impossible due to the nature of the internet. Also, a programmable failure. So this is another issue as well. Is it possible that the program itself that people are running will fail? Now, or there might be a bug in the code. Now, ironically, if you look at the history of Bitcoin, there has been bugs in the past where there was things that went wrong. But this is the thing, this is the beauty about Bitcoin, is that because it's decentralized and because people are invested in Bitcoin, therefore it's in my best interest to make sure that it doesn't go wrong. Not me as a private company, but me as a participant in a network. So let me give you an example. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, the founder as well, CEO of Twitter, and Jay-Z, the famous rapper, just donated, I think something like 40 Bitcoin to some university or something to help do research and development on the Bitcoin network. There was an Arab, UAE national who donated $4 billion, listen carefully, $4 billion of his own personal wealth. He gave it to Massachusetts University just for relevant of the Bitcoin network in terms of maintenance. It's just his own sadaqah, just giving it to research. And there are thousands of people on the network actually just coding free of charge, keeping the network. And why would they do that? Because they're invested. Everyone is privately invested. Elon Musk just put $1.5 billion of his balance sheet into Bitcoin. The MicroStrategy has put the whole balance sheet onto Bitcoin. If you just imagine to yourself, okay, look, we have a network of thousands, tens of thousands, potentially even millions of people who have money invested in Bitcoin. They're going to do their utmost to make sure nothing goes wrong.
Yeah.
So basically, if you want to say that a government wants to try and attack the Bitcoin network, and they're not really attacking the network, they're attacking everyone on the network. Makes sense? That includes government officials. I mean, don't think that American government, they're not people in the Senate who have Bitcoin. They have Bitcoin. There are people who have invested in Bitcoin. You have officials. I mean, even funny enough, they say that one of the biggest holders of Bitcoin is what's his name? Kim Jong-un. of North Korea.
Mm,
Apparently, he's got a massive bag of Bitcoin.
yeah.
So if you're going to attack the network, you're attacking essentially North Korea. I mean, everyone is going to say, look, don't attack my Bitcoin, because that's my network. That's the beauty of Bitcoin, is that because it belongs to everyone, if you attack the Bitcoin network, you're effectively attacking everybody.
Yeah.
And it's in everyone's best interest to defend it. And that's why the probability of it going to zero, something seriously catastrophic needs to happen. And the joke is, if it does happen, I think we'll have other issues to deal with.
Yeah, that's what they always say with the stock market as well. But Ustad, I'm conscious of it's been 1 hour 40 minutes almost. Jazakallah khairan. This was amazing, honestly. Like what I want people to see, people listening or viewing, is obviously you see the passion in the topic that Ustad has, but also the knowledge, and then you've got the Islamic grounding as well. So if you're a Muslim and you're interested in this as an individual, or even if you've got a business and you want to get involved, I can't see why you wouldn't want to kind of take it further, and visit Crypto Hash Review, get in touch with their team and go through the steps, and obviously increase your knowledge and get more involved in it and benefit from this expertise. And that's the reason why I wanted to have you on here as well. And you've been very generous with your time, and Jazakallah khairan. Unless you have any kind of final thoughts or anything to share.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say, because I'm assuming this is going towards Muslims and you want to, and your premise is to encourage Muslims into finance and building business and infrastructure and increasing their wealth.
Yeah.
I think any person who is interested in increasing his wealth and developing his business would be absolutely insane to ignore Bitcoin. Essentially, think about this one. Any business in the 1990s who said, I don't care about email or internet, essentially they're crippling their business. So it's imperative, nothing to become a trader, but imperative to explore the many avenues and how you can increase your revenue and your income by adopting the future early, building the infrastructure for people to pay you in Bitcoin, building up products based on Bitcoin. There's so many things you can do on this blockchain technology that will increase your revenue exponentially. So give it some time. I'm not saying change your business model. I'm saying integrate, just like you integrate internet into your business model, you can integrate Bitcoin into your business model. So for example, as an example, imagine you teach martial arts. That's your thing. You teach Wing Chun, kickboxing, whatever. How can Bitcoin help you? Simple. Maybe you record some what they call it, some routines. That's the word. You record some routines, teaching people about self-defense, that kind of stuff. You make an online platform that someone can pay you to view this content and view advice and what kind of stuff, and have an avenue to accept payment in Bitcoin. What that does is that it doesn't just target the UK audience, because that's why obviously your business in the UK. You actually are now targeting business globally. Someone in Samoa can see your business, see your content, think, yeah, this is great, and want to pay you money. If you're a charity, that's amazing. See avenues or explore avenues to accept donations in Bitcoin. Anyone on planet Earth can donate to your charity in Bitcoin. If you have a project to build some masjid in Asia or in Africa, or dig a well, or build a school, just have a look. If you want to donate, here's a Bitcoin address, and you have money flooding to you from any. Imagine that rich Arab who donated $4 billion to that university just to research Bitcoin. Imagine he just stumbles across your website. If you go, oh, mashallah, this is a good little project here. I'll just throw a couple Bitcoin because I got millions of Bitcoin. I'll just throw a couple. It's loose change to him. But he gives it to you, and you wake up one morning and you've got like some couple 100,000 worth of Bitcoin donations out of nowhere. These are the things that you can open to you in terms of revenue stream. It doesn't mean you have to put all your savings to Bitcoin. You can actually keep your savings in pounds, but explore how to integrate the Bitcoin network into your business.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, Jazakallah khair. So once again, cryptohashreview.com. I'll have it all linked in the description and everything as well. And Jazakallah khairan for everyone listening. If you benefited, please like, share, subscribe, and rate on the platforms that you follow. And also follow Ustadh Mu'Aawiyah on Instagram. He's got his Crypto Hash Review page. And that's where I also came across his content. He's got some very informative kind of infographics and uploads content regularly on there, mashallah. So jazakallah khairan, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah
وعليكم السلام ورحمة
wa
الله.
barakatuh.